The RCMP will not charge anyone in connection with last May's wildfire in Upper Tantallon that destroyed 150 homes. That's according to documents obtained through an access to information request last week. Dustin O'Leary is with the Westwood Hills Residents Association. Sir, you've had a few days now since we learned that the RCMP will not be laying any charges and has in fact closed its investigation into the wildfires. What are you hearing from your neighbors about this latest development?
Well, Tom, first off, thanks for having me. And I think the words, that I've sort of tried to use are frustrated and disappointed. I think in two ways. One, this has been a pretty catastrophic event. Certainly the wildfires and everything that happened subsequently. And I think we know that this wasn't there wasn't lightning in the area at the time. This wasn't a natural event. This was something that was caused by human activity, and people quite rightfully expected some accountability on that. But I think as well how folks found out about this through this sort of freedom of information piece is disappointing as well. I would hope that there would have been more of a move towards a bit of compassion and empathy for everybody who went through this, especially the folks who had a catastrophic loss. So I think that's sort of where everybody stands. I'm not necessarily sure it's entirely surprising that there may be a difference between what everybody thinks happened and what could necessarily be proven in court. But I think how this came across to everybody is probably the biggest disappointment of all.
Yeah, this came through an access to information request that someone then passed on to the media. The RCMP says that video that was circulating that's suggesting how and where the fire started wasn't enough to identify, in fact, where or who started the fire, so no arson charges could be filed. What do you make of that?
I've seen a little bit of what everybody else saw, and I can't really speak to it other than to say that I respect the views of the RCMP that if that's the conclusion they came to. And as I said earlier, I think it's a fair separation between what can be probably proven in a court of law and what can be seen through video. So I think we understand that it's unfortunate, and I think it doesn't necessarily provide the closure that some wanted on this, but I think at the same time the biggest disappointment of it all is that the way folks found out about this could have been handled a lot differently, and should have been.
Yeah, and yet some people will argue and have argued that laying charges wouldn't change anything much anyway.
I've heard that, and I understand that. At the same time, I think we have to understand that there was some accountability here, and hopefully, I think what I've heard is that the Department of Natural Resources, has a variety of mechanisms that they may be able to enact as well. So it's not just necessarily a criminal matter. So I hope that they look at all mechanisms that are available to them to provide some closure on this, and also just to make sure that everybody's heard, even if nothing happens at the end of this. I think how you deal with the folks who have suffered the most really shows the effectiveness and compassion of the enforcement bodies that are there. I think there's a higher calling to all of them to do more here.
Well, does a lack of charges in any way, lessen the deterrence for people to light what might be risky fires?
I don't. Certainly, from the people I'm happy to call my neighbors and represent, I don't think so. We have a community Facebook page, and if ever anybody's since May, if anybody's burning anything in the neighborhood, or want to have a party and let off a few fireworks or something like that, they're putting it on the community Facebook page to let people know. So the amount of sort of trauma and awareness that this has put in the community since, it's sad, but it's also heartwarming to know that everybody knows how affected everybody was by this. So I think the community will take care of itself from that perspective. I think where we've seen a lack of action is with the municipality and the province on infrastructure that will help support us in the fight against such impacts of a wildfire in the future. But from a day-to-day perspective, my real hope is that there's some things we as neighbors can do to help one another, but everybody's trying to take care of one another as best they can.
And just in a word or two before I let you go, do you feel any safer in your community now when it comes to the risk of fire than you did prior to this incident?
No, and I say that understanding that the government bodies are trying to move forward, but there has been literally no marked improvement in Westwood Hills in the neighborhood I represent since May 28th of 2023. And that's shameful. So I've been fighting, community members have been fighting to change that. And I think there's things moving forward, but quite frankly, that is still a huge misstep in all of the actions that have happened since May 28th of last year, is that we're still here and we're still waiting for meaningful action to make our community feel safer in the event that this were to happen again.
Dustin O'Leary, I know your home was not directly impacted beyond smoke damage. We're thankful for that and thankful for this time tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.